But I think instead religious groups who have like taken like large groups of people and then been like, yeah, oh, you like God and Jesus, that's cool, but what if you did it this way? What if you changed a bit? Like, for example, I would say Jim Jones. I would definitely consider him adjacent. I would consider Ervil LeBaron. He was one of the early members of Mormonism who brought a bunch of people to the desert, ended up being a serial killer, like had his cult kill mass numbers of people.
Wow.
Yeah,
I'd say when was like that? I'm interested in that.
Ervil LeBaron.
Ervil Redenbacher. He's the popcorn guy.
I want to say it was. Hold on, let me just type it in. His name's Ervil LeBaron. People joke because if you take out the R, his name is Evil the Baron. Which it was like 1950s, 1960s it happened. So there was this
way more recent than I thought you were going to say.
Yeah, there was this big schism within Mormonism. I believe the disagreement was over polygamy, if I recall correctly. Not a lot of people know this, but core Mormonism, like the parts of it that exist now, are actually super anti-polygamy. It's that there's a bunch of offshoots who have left the church because they're pro-polygamy. And Ervil LeBaron was one of them. So he brought like him and all his sister wives out to the middle of the desert. I want to say it was Nevada, New Mexico, one of those. And there was a bunch of other Mormon leaders who would preach against him, who would say that he's a what's the word I'm looking for? Yeah, well, that too. But whenever someone is trying to divert people away from the church,
like a false prophet kind of.
But yeah. Like he was a false prophet. He was a heretic. That's the word I'm looking for.
Heretic.
That he was trying to push everyone away from the truth. So he would have his members like roll over to that other church at night and they would like stab preachers to death. There was one point that he was going to go on trial. The big event of Ervil LeBaron's life is right before he was finally caught. There was like 3 people that were going to go on testify against him. And within an hour, all 3 of them got executed like around the state at different locations. He had planned it that at the same time there would be men in each town. Like one got shot with a shotgun, another was stabbed to death. Like it was like a Breaking Bad level hit, like all at the same time. Because Ervil, yeah.
All his accusers.
Because Ervil LeBaron had such a grip on his followers.
That's what happens to liars, Taylor. The Lord punishes them.
The Lord struck them down.
They were smited by God Almighty for their filthy lies about the great Kevin Spacey. I'll tell you what I would sell my soul to a Crossroads demon for. Go back and make Kevin Spacey fix that last season. I want to see what was going to happen.
For one season of a show that was already bad.
Of a show that was already downhill. I want to know what Doug was going to do. I want to know if he was going to kill that bitch wife of his. I want to know. I need to see it. Bring Kevin back. Hashtag save Spacey.
I think that's
all of his accusers are either dead or gone. And
I'm not sure that proves his innocence like you're implying.
It does not. Dude, the list of this guy's wives and accomplices on Ervil LeBaron is insane. Like, he had like 60 kids, and they included in that and also raised a couple of step kids as though they're like pumping his tires a little bit here. It's like, it seems like a bad guy. Killed on behalf of the cult. That's a whole column in this enormous table. Killed on behalf of the cult. Why? Like a lot of yeses that they killed on behalf of this cult. So how old was he old enough that here's my question, because this is, I'm imagining, I know y'all haven't seen it, but the TV show about this where the guy had
Under the Banner of Heaven.
And were his children, like he had 60 kids or whatever, does that mean he had like an army of sons? Because you can imagine when that would be very formidable.
Killing. Yeah.
If you had 20 grown man sons, that would be difficult to deal with the guy who has 20 sons who are like 18 or older. Yeah. That would be a problem. Right?
Not as difficult as the guy who has 41 sons.
I grew up without a big brother, but I hear about this circumstance where like someone beats up your little brother and then the big brother goes and beats them up. If there's 41 bigger and bigger brothers, like if you start on the totem pole, it's gonna be a long fucking day before you get to dad to say anything about anything.
It's like a video game. He like sends out the C team first, and then you have to be like the boss son who he had with like an enormous Mormon bitch.
He just sends 2 mean girls. He sends his 2 meanest daughters to get you first.
It's funny too because this is going back to like medieval times thought. It's like I have to have so many sons because if not, this castle's getting destroyed. Like we gotta have more kids. Yeah.
You thought like, all right, I need like 15 sons because 8 of them are gonna die in the wars they're conscripted into.
Or at childbirth, like a quarter.
We don't understand how germs work yet, so that's gonna take a few.
We don't know what they are, but we're really afraid of them. Like people just die. It's weird.
Can you imagine how hard we pray?
Like back in the day, it was just like the only conception you could have of germs was like even them being airborne was just because you would get sick even though you didn't touch the gross person. Like that's the only way they could know. It's like, okay, so something's clearly going around here.
They thought it was the stink of the dead body.
Yeah.
Like oh no, like the vapors of it got me. That would make you ill. Like
they're almost close.
Which they were close. That's like
they were close enough.
Just put it together. Yeah. There was this thought process. This was right before germ theory came around. I want to say it was like American Civil War. I think it lasted to like Spanish Civil War, so like 1880s. The idea was if you were a doctor operating on living patients, right? So like an amputation, gunshot, whatever. The idea was that the blood of the living is good, right? Because they're not dead. The dead, bad, live, good. So if you get a bunch of blood on your hands and you let it cake on and harden, that acts as a protective layer against other things. So the idea was if you were working on people like in a medical tent, never wash your hands because you're supposed to have as much coverage from one person to the other. And then they tried washing their hands during World War I, and they're like, we're having like a 98% survival rate over what last year's demographics. This is incredible.
Isn't that like the Florence Nightingale story? Or like she was a big advocate of washing your hands.
Yes,
a lot of people at the time were like, shut up, you dumb bitch. Where's my blood bucket?
Meanwhile,
a bunch of pussies really. They don't understand how inoculation works. You need to.
There was a Muslim
dip your
guy
hands
somewhere
in pus before surgery.
Oh yes,
really washing up. That same year, there was a Muslim in the desert. Oh, those fools! Like they knew, didn't they? Like
a lot of Middle Eastern countries did. You're right. Yeah,
a lot of cultures figured it out way before that.
Yeah.
Working immune system.
Healthcare sucks. Healthcare
the Romans figured that shit out. They washed their hands.
I was watching a thing. They were talking about that device that was invented apparently during World War I. When you break your what's the bone from your hip to your knee? Is that a femur?
Femur.
So when you break your femur, that the biggest bone in your leg, the muscles pull the hip to the knee because they're under pressure normally, and the bone is now broken. So that bone slips past each shaft slips past the other, and so. The death rate of someone who had broken their femur was massively high. It's like a career wound. This is a career-ending wound.
Yeah.
You're muted, Kyle.
Oh, we lost you, Kyle. It's a career-ending injury. If your career is fighting in a trench or fighting the Unions or the Confederates. All those guys.
Man, he got so mad. He was like, "I'm done with this."
He got so pissed that he's being disproven that demons exist.
I have a suspicion that it's hardware. You're still muted.
1, 2, 3, 4.
Oh,
you're not. Good. There he is.
So, it would be a career-ending wound to say the least. You'd fucking die. And they created this device that just stretches the leg back out. It looks like it's kind of like a superstructure that goes over your hip all the way to the end of your leg, like a bird cage type apparatus.
Is it like a Chinese finger trap?
No, but more like a long
I think that's what the leg does in that situation.
But, it stretches the leg back out so they can get those two shafts together so they can mend, and then the death rate just plummeted. Like that one thing was what they needed to do. Can you imagine growing up, like getting hurt in a time where the bone saw was the doctor's most common implement?
Dude, I would be. I've broken every limb at this point. Do you know what it would look like? I'd be a worm.
You wouldn't be Woody. You'd be Stumpy.
No, he'd be Woody. He's the guy with 2 wooden legs.
You do like
Lieutenant Dan.
Oh, come Woody. He'll never sink.
When I broke my left arm, to set it, they had a thing that was basically, the Chinese finger toys. You put your hands in, and when you pull them, they get tighter. It was a device like that. It was for 6 fingers. I'm not sure why, but it had like 6 little finger traps. They put your hand in it, and then they put weights on your bicep, and it just pulls your forearm apart. That's how they set bones.
Yeah, I don't, because I'm under you.
I've had
it. Also doesn't sound like you're describing jujitsu.
There is a super lovely husband and wife couple where I trained, and they were Mormon. They were really like sweet and nice.
Mormon jujitsu people.
Yeah, it's true.
Yo.
And I really liked them both. And she was pretty good, but I don't know if she had more skill than me, but it wasn't close because I was so much bigger and stronger.
Yeah.
And but yeah, you just like, she'd lay there on her back, knees spread, and you get in her guard. And if you don't know, that just means missionary position. It's exactly the same.
Yeah.
And it's just like, this doesn't seem right, but here we are.
Yeah.
A Mormon who can do that. That's good tactics. It's like, I demand a moment of your time to talk about your Lord and Savior.
Just federal government agencies,
full Nelson.
Federal government agencies recruit extensively from Mormon like Mormon groups. It's not a joke. Like they exhibit.
Why?
When you say government agencies, you're talking about like the 3 letters, FBI, CIA.
Yeah. They find that Mormons are the perfect agents. They have this stable background. They have this established history. They're often from the correct socioeconomic groups. Like they
tons
plug
of family
right into that agency.
In case they get out of line, the CIA can be like, hey, Ezekiel and Isaiah and Jeremiah and Jedediah and Susie and Alan and the other half of your siblings are in trouble if you don't do this. Yeah.
Hey, if you mess with us, we'll destroy your house. That'll be at least 67 people.
Yeah.
They're people with roots, as another way of thinking of it. Whereas Enrique, who just like, hey, I'm not here for a long time. I'm here for a good time. Like, we don't give him top secret clearance.
Why not?
He seems happy about it.
I mean, like, none of us know shit about the CIA compared to Wendigoon. Is that true? Are the Mormons filling up our intelligence apparatus? Do we need to be worried?
It makes a lot of sense because, like, the CIA, they've been reined back in recent years, but primarily like Cold War times and stuff. They were their own like dragon. Like the FBI didn't like them, other agencies didn't like them. Even at this day, I know people in the FBI who are like, "Oh, those spooks, I don't want to work with them." Like, it's an entirely different machine.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
Wrong plate.
And then they're like, and don't get me started on the CIA. Like, damn, these guys are straight from the 50s. Just
wrap the show 17 minutes long. I'm loving it.
Yeah.
Good game, boys.
You think you're liking it now? Enzo gonna make you love it.
Want to keep doing the Italian hairdresser all the time.
He's a new character. He's
don't know how to do the voice so good.
The closeted Italian hairdresser. Yeah.
You're a hairdresser. Yeah. Woo!
I've been watching videos.